That's interesting. Seems to be. Oh, that's the problem. 3 6. There we go. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome, CLSP Politics. We're coming in live. We're basically watching the voter totals come in, and I've got my first batch for the Houston special election, Congressional District 18. And it looks like we've got here. I'll put them up on the copy. Put them here. See if this works. This will be fun. See if this works. Paste. See here. There we go. So Amanda Edwards is at 33.36%, and Christian Menefee is at 66.64%. Now, and I can make this a little bit cleaner. Here, I do this a little bit better here. So basically what we're looking at is well, this is all the early voting numbers. So we tend to sorry, it's not really wanting to format. Where we tend to get all the early numbers in right at the beginning, and that way we can it's just the stuff that's already been tallied. So I'm on the and actually I can put the link in here. You guys can watch along with me. I'll put the link in the feed. This is the Harris County elections website. If you go to this, click right on it, you'll see what I'm seeing, which is the live updated feed from the county elections office. And this is generally what we watch. Now, you can also go to, NBC's got a pretty decent website on that one as well. And they have a cool map. So if that's your thing, but they should say pretty much exactly the same thing at the same time. So shouldn't be a huge difference, maybe a delay. Technically, the county is where they're getting their data from. So you'll see it on the county website about half a second before it gets on to the other ones. So generally, we tend to go with the county ones. And so what we saw here, that dropped at 7 o'clock, really probably like 7:15. It dropped just the early voting. So early voting looks to be about 13,621, which is kind of interesting. It's a Saturday election, so I think we can expect the total vote turnout to be above 45,000 tonight in total. So not even, not so barely any of the votes really come in yet. So yeah, this is all just early voting so far. Nothing too crazy. Right now we have because it's early voting, you get like a smidgen from every precinct that posts. So we've gotten something from almost every precinct. A couple of them we didn't get any numbers at all, but I'm going to tell you now, there's some precincts out there that are real, like just literally maybe a house with some swamp. We've got one one of my favorites is there used to be, where it was right next to Love. It was like Love Field, the airport, and there's this one cutout, and there's this one house with like 2 registered voters in it. So if you got them to vote early, you could take 100% of a precinct, at 7 o'clock in the evening. Anyway, it was just one of the weird things that we used to do. If you have any questions about special elections or elections in Texas, generally speaking, that would be awesome. I can tell you a little bit about the candidates. Amanda Edwards is an at-large District 4 city council seat in Houston. So she's in the city itself. So she's run probably in most parts of Houston. And Christian Menefee is, I believe, district attorney and is a bunch of other stuff in the city as well. So they both are pretty equivalent. Now, what's interesting about this race is that you're going to have a so this is they're all running in a primary on March 3rd. So everyone that's in this race right now is also running on March 3rd. So this is really just like a prelim. What's interesting about whoever wins this is going to almost kind of get handicapped because now they're going to have to split their time between DC and running for office in Houston. And that can get real complicated because it's just time management in your calendar. You're a freshman in Congress. There's a ton of just stuff you got to set up your office. There's so many things that have to be done when you first get into office. Plus, you're running a primary that's going to happen in 30 days from now. And then you'll have a general election, which is pretty much a foregone conclusion. Because actually, what's interesting is you will have you're having a this is so messed up because they redistricted. They're all currently running for a seat that doesn't exist anymore or won't after January because the district itself has changed. So what's interesting is both these candidates have been running in an old district before they redrew the lines and running in one of the new districts that they drew the line for. In two congressional districts simultaneously, and it's pretty much a winner take all on March 3rd. So this is needless to say, whoever wins this, and it's by no means settled. It's 60-33, but I mean, I'll tell you, if you're ahead in early voting, it's a great sign. Have I seen people come back from being behind in early voting? Yes. It probably just means Christian Menefee had a real solid GOTV program operate for early voting, and that has its own kind of program. And good on him. I think it's absolutely worth every penny through it. So we'll have to see where they're at, but I mean, that's obviously what happened here. And through the updates as we begin to get more and more results in. But like I said, if there's any questions about elections or what this race is going to look like, I think an argument could be made that the vote has come in for a good little while. So because what's going to happen is they're now tallying the votes. So smaller precincts that are close to downtown will come in. But what's weird about this district, and I think I can do some stuff here. Yes, expand menu. What do I got here? Okay. 3 seconds. Okay, don't need that. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I want to do results. Oh, this one, yes. Okay. And no, I want to do this one. There we go. Okay. What you're seeing here is this is what the district looks like. This was before the gerrymandering. The new districts work, right? And this isn't a precinct breakdown. This is a county breakdown. I mean, I'll eventually get a precinct breakdown if anyone's interested. But right now, this is what it's looking like. We got 9,077 votes for. Oh, that's interesting. She got a couple more votes. They're obviously just tallying. They're estimating only 15,000 people are voting in this election. That seems really low for a Saturday, but and if that's the case, then I mean, they're saying 15. I guess they're saying that there's going to be about 30,000. That's about right. About 15,000 still left out there. So we've seen almost half the votes come out, and that'd be interesting if early voting makes up half the turnout, that would be very interesting to me because, like, normally it's about one third the total turnout on a given on a given cycle. So you only get like, so you get a third, and then the next two thirds kind of come in throughout the rest of the evening. Only 15,000 people are expected to vote on election day. That's very, very, very low turnout. Um, that's almost at that point the party has picked their candidate. A lot of times when you see really, really low turnout in an election like this, it's because, I mean, it's just the district doesn't exist anymore. Part of it probably, and and you understand people are currently spending money. It must be the most confusing environment for voters right now in Houston, because you've got two layers operating. You've got money being spent on the race that we're watching tonight, and then you've got money coming in on the race that's happening on March 3rd. And a lot of these candidates are running for the same seats. So, in fact, a lot of the candidates that didn't make it into this runoff, because this is the runoff of the special election, 332 days with no representation for like a million voters, almost a million citizens in one of the largest cities in the country, all because Greg Abbott didn't want the Democrats to have one more vote in Congress. That's really why we're here tonight. That's it. It's Greg Abbott. So, so that's kind of, what, it's got to be very, very confusing for these candidates. I mean, for these voters, because they're getting all sorts of information, and a lot of them are being asked to vote in another 30 days. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out. And because of the way the district is drawn, there's really only one real viable seat, and I'm not going to spend much time on it tonight. I'm going to go to that one probably this coming. I'm doing a whole series on the March primaries right now, so we'll talk about all the candidates that are running in the primary. And you understand, a lot of these primaries that are drawn, that Democrats are running for right now, like, they really did a number with the gerrymandering. You understand, it's like they really are trying to take 5 seats away from the Democrats, and odds are they're probably going to at least take 4 of them. I think there's a 5th one there's a couple things I think the Republicans screwed up on when they did the redistricting. One, they were using bad math. They were using 2020 census data, and that's kind of complicated because it was during COVID. The math isn't real tight. Plus, they undercount minorities by huge double-digit margins. So that complicates the whole thing. Because now you're like, okay, when you're trying to draw a solid racist map and to divide all of the minorities up and compartmentalize them in different districts so that they can't vote as a unit, it's called disenfranchisement. It's called I have a video on my channel about gerrymandering. You guys should look it up. I talk about there's a bunch of different kinds of gerrymandering. They used every single one of them when they redrew these maps. There's fracking, there's packing, there's kidnapping, there's the one, I forget what they call it, the one where you put 2 candidates in one district. I mean, they did it all. And I'll be honest, it's like, so Texas is a majority state. The white population is under 50% of the total population of the state. Yet, when you look at the total number of elected officials, and then you look at what the race breakdown for those elected officials are, I mean, levers of power in this state, especially if you consider the Republicans have been in charge for 40 years, and they're like 99% white. and they control the state at every level you can imagine. That's why I call Texas an apartheid state, because they've gerrymandered this state so terribly. We're the worst. We have the worst representation by population of any state in the country. And I've got math on that, and trust me, we're bad. We're the worst. There are a whole bunch of Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, they're all better than we are. These new maps, and that was before they redrew it. Now the redrawn maps are just ridiculously bad. And so, you know, I call this district, these are zombie districts. They're dead, don't know it yet, because the new ones are coming, and that's what we're voting on in March, and then again in November of this year. So this is just a really interesting kind of take on what the current situation is in voting in Texas. It's one of the least democratic states in the country. And they're all about local control until the locals try to control something. And they're like, no local control. So, I mean, they want local control as long as it's Republican local control. If it's anything else, they're not interested, which is fine. I mean, it's where we're at, and this is, and what's really interesting about Texas, we're talking about voting. I'm just going to check on the totals real quick. Where are we at? See if there's any update. Nope. So what's really interesting about Texas is that most of us don't vote. That's why I kind of started this channel, was to try and get people to vote and turn out, and actually, and it's like, I spent most of my life trying to get people to turn out and vote, actually. And yeah, I mean, I turned 51 in a month, and I've been doing this work since 29 years. Well, that's more than half my life that I've been trying to just get people to vote. So in Texas, what we've got is, on a good day, 50% vote. So when you look at the real math, like, of the voters, and sometimes we have races where 40% vote. Let's just use 40. It's an easy number. So if it was a 50-50 split in this state, it'd be 20% voting Democrat, 20% voting Republican. So it's not, though, because we're like we're like an R+3 state, right? R+4 on a really bad day, R+15. It happens. We vary, right? Beto got within 3 points. Wendy got within 14. So, not every election's the same. Not everyone gets the opportunity to run against Ted Cruz. Some candidates actually have to run against people that, you wouldn't speed up if they were trying to cross the street. So it varies in this state. But think about that, right? So that means what? 21% Republican, 19% Democrat. So there's that group that doesn't vote. I call them the apathy voters, right? I call them the apathy party. They don't care. They got 3 kids, 4 jobs, 2 mortgages, 3 car payments. They're cooked. Their bandwidth is totally absorbed, and there's nothing that they can at all put in their brain. They are full. I don't think they're bad people. I just think that they're, the way our economy and our, this country's set up, it's to keep you working 60 hours a week so you don't know you're drowning. So I think there's just a lot of people out there that some think their vote doesn't matter, which is exactly what the Republicans want you to think. Some people I've heard, they're like, they don't like candidates. Hey, listen, believe me, I've worked for 200 campaigns. I can assure you, I did not like every candidate I worked for, but I guarantee you they were better than the other guy, or at least equivalent. But yeah, no. So when you look at the math and you're like, okay, what happens? What happens if 2 or 3% of the apathy vote decides just to vote? Well, that changes the math, right? So now instead of 40% voting, 43% voting. So how did that apathetic mass vote? Well, they're not going to vote against the party that's not in power, right? Apathy voters only turn out when they're feeling pain or they're angry about something. And with the Republicans being in charge of this state for the last 30 or 40 years, one would think that that would be who the apathy voters are probably going to vote against, right? I mean, the Republican Party in Texas is the man. When they're always like, vote against the man, da 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 da, you know. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Christian is winner. Yeah, me too. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Um, I'm feeling like, even though not all the votes are counted yet, um, and they really haven't counted anything past early voting. And they said they're looking at a total turnout of about 30,000 votes. So I'm not sure who's won yet. The math is definitely leaning towards Christian, for sure, which is too bad. I mean, they're both good candidates. Don't get me wrong. I've followed Amanda Edwards for quite some time, and I really like her as a candidate, and I think she's a really good local elected official. She does a good job in the city council for Houston. So that was just my honestly at this point, like getting a warm body in there that can vote when they're trying to fund ICE in Congress is you know and vote against it. That's really what I'm about. Like, I mean, I could be picky all I want, but really my pick is please go vote. Please vote against that crap. And both of them have no time for any of the ICE movement or anything. All right. Okay. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, a lot of people. I get a lot of questions about. Thank you, Veronica Anderson. I appreciate your post. She's concerned that we're all not going to really have a chance to vote in November, and I share that concern. I do believe we will. I believe that the election will happen. I think there will be shenanigans, and we'll have to deal with that. Um, but it's my job to make sure that. So, like for example, when we go and we do field programs, we knock on hundreds of thousands of doors, right? And we get 12% response rate. And these are voters, right? So these aren't just Joe Schmo off the road kind of thing. We know who they are, how old they are, when they voted, the likelihood to vote, all that jazz. So there's a lot of us doing that kind of work out there right now. And what's good about that work is that it goes beyond phones, it goes beyond social media. It's real voters on their front porch where it matters. And I think that data we collect from that is so incredibly valuable when it comes to, when we look at turnout or how the vote goes down. Because, for example, when you see a New York Times post a New York Times uh, election, the hold on a second. I want to make sure I'm using. Yes, okay. Just want to make sure I'm using the right. Yeah, okay. Right. Okay. Sorry, I was just making sure that I was doing something correctly. So just make sure you guys can hear me. So uh so the data we collect, we end up with a lot of very solid data about very specific voters, and we can extrapolate from that. So when you look at a New York Times poll, national poll, they'll have a sample size of 1,500. If I knock on 100,000 doors, that's national, right? 1,500 people answered the phone. And then using statistics and analysis, New York Times came up with what it's going to be. We do it, we knock on 100,000 doors, we're talking 12,000 households. That turns into about plus or minus 15,000 voters. So my sample size, not only is it in a smaller region like a congressional race or maybe a statewide race, but my sample size is enormous. And because we're always we knock 6 days a week, there's an opportunity of about 300 minutes every day for us to run into a voter, right? And when that canvasser's on that road, at what time, at what day, that is a randomizing factor. Believe me, I coordinate these things. I wish it wasn't as random as it is, but it's random. So when we get the data back, and we know the universe that we're going after too, so we know the disposition. Like, for example, I was in Florida. I was the data director for largest program, and we knocked on 1 million doors in 7 counties in Florida in 2022. This is when DeSantis was being propped up by the Republican Party. They were just dumping money into his race in 22. Actually, because it's an industry, I know people who operate on different sides of campaigning, and I know vendors that work with Democrats and Republicans. So yeah, we talk. So it's kind of it's gossip. But anyway, I was talking to one of them, and turns out the Democratic budget for media, all media outreach for 2022 in Florida was the equivalent of DeSantis, just his Hispanic radio buy. So when I'm like going through the data and I'm looking at our canvas, and we've talked to over 100,000 households, right? Like, we're knocking 1 million doors, 12% response rate, So it's 100,000 doors. And I'm sitting at 30%. We knock on 35,000 doors a day. And every day's sample is 30% undecided. The overall number's 35% undecided. And this is a universe of voters that absolutely has to vote for us. That's when you know you've lost. A good field program can diagnose if you're going to lose your race weeks before, or win your race weeks before it happened. For example, when we were in Green Bay this last spring, that was the least stressful election day I've ever had in my life. Because based on our data, and we were proven correct by a lot more, by a larger margin than we thought. Like, I thought we would increase turnout by like 8%, 7%, something like that, something respectable. We did 16. So, and circumstances always abide every campaign, right? The circumstances are always interesting. They are like we had Elon Musk just dropping $1 million checks for people. Still no change. Elon Musk dropped $1 million checks for people to vote. That happened like half a block away from me, because we had a whole bunch of protesters and stuff. And thinking about Green Bay, they're real working class. Like, yeah, there's some guys that got money, but they don't really show it. Like, you could be talking to a guy that's worth over $1 million. He's driving a beat up truck. That is not at all unusual in Green Bay. So when they got this billionaire throwing $1 million checks around, acting like acting up, being impolite, no, Wisconsin doesn't play like that. That's like the wrong image you want to be putting forth in Green Bay, Wisconsin. That's literally a Packers town. These guys work hard, and they farm hard, and they drink a lot of beer and eat a lot of cheese, but they don't play. So we had that going for us. The messaging behind the Republican Party was so off that we were able to really take advantage of that, and yeah, it was great. Um, and like I said, we knew because of what the information we were getting from the field. And keep in mind, Green Bay is not a big town. So I learned this fact about Green Bay. You could take the entire population of Green Bay, if you include the field at Lambeau, you can fill the stadium with the population of Green Bay. It's 105,000, which is interesting. You're like, well, that's tiny. I mean, yeah, we got state house districts bigger than that, in Dallas. Anyway, so, but what was cool was we could go in and get a solid sample of, we talked to, how many people we talked to? About 3,000, almost 4,000 households in Green Bay. We had incredible response rates. You wouldn't even believe, I didn't believe the response rates of the guys, because he's like, this can't be. And he went and came back with a 50% response rate. Every other door answered. And we're like, hey, man, some of our days have been just like that. And he was like, understood. This is what's happening now. People are engaged. People are interested. Trump had just become president, right? This was about 4 months after that, because that election was the first Tuesday of April. So people were ginned, and he'd already started saying crazy stuff and doing crazy stuff. So even the Republicans that aren't MAGA were like, oh, this is probably not going to work out any better than it did the first time. So so we ran into that quite a bit. But because of the data we collected in that field program, we knew that at least in Green Bay, and according to everyone you talk to, I've only for 2024's election, November election, and the spring. And they're bringing us back for the midterms, which is going to be lots of fun. And I will do lots of shows from Wisconsin here in a month or two. So we were told Green Bay is the hardest state to build out and get going. And we're like, all right. Okay, well, I mean, we've launched in some pretty terrible spots before. My team, well, I always remind them that when we walk into a room, the amount of experience for field has increased in this room by 100 years. That's how much experience the team I walk in with has. There's, only 4 of us. So we really do actually know what we're talking about when we talk about field, mostly pretty much any other part of campaign work. So do another quick check. We may get another updated batch at 8:00, but I'm feeling like Christian's probably got this one if the expected turnout remains. But right now, outside early voting, no voting centers have reported, just the early voting numbers, and those were already in. So anyway, so they told us that Green Bay was the hardest place to start a campaign. So we went, okay. And then we, in 27 days, knocked on 20,000 doors, and like really knocked on it. Like I audited my job as the data director is to audit. I'll explain my job a little bit. Some of you might not know. So there's a lot of positions at the top of any organized fund field program for any campaign. And if the program's doing its job, it is the campaign. Like you have your media, you got your social media, you have your rah-rah events, but most of the day-to-day machinations of the campaign will be field if it's done correctly. Because the rest of it's just driving the principal around. Okay. The principal is the candidate. So you drive the principal around, make sure that they show up to all their events on time and leave before they have to be at another event. And God, I've done that work. And I know people who do that work, and they are better people than me. uh, Running calendars, operating with candidates, I've done it. It is hard work because candidates don't want to be rude. They're running for office, and there are all sorts of people want to see the candidate. They're the most interesting thing on, in the election. So, um, they're what everyone wants to see. They're the one that everyone wants to meet, right? Nobody cares about Sean. Everyone wants to go meet Obama. He's interesting. I'm the data guy who sits in a cave. Nobody wants to talk to me. So these handlers, that's what we call them, have to go out and they have to just kind of go, ma'am or sir, we actually have to go. Da, da, da. And keep in mind, it takes them half an hour to get across a room, shaking hands. And when you've got that kind of delay and you're trying to keep a schedule, it is incredibly difficult. Because you don't want to be rude. You want to be, nice. And it's hard sometimes. So yeah. Well, I've decided I'm going to take this to 8 o'clock because we should get or when the next big batch comes in. Because right now we're sitting at 13,621. Uh, and Christian uh, 5,000 votes. About 4,500 votes. Yeah, 4,500 votes. And if Amanda Edwards can make that up on election day, then she obviously had a solid team working for her. But they both had almost within one vote of each other, had exactly the same amount of mail-in ballots. They were within one vote. Amanda Edwards got 1,066 and Christian Menefee got 1,065. I don't know. I'm sorry, the math in me finds that stuff to be interesting. Now, early voting is where Christian really killed it, right? So if they're even on mail-in ballots, then it's the early voting number that the difference is, and that is a solid difference. That's where the 4,500 come in, because she's sitting at 3,478 votes for early voting, and he's sitting at 8,012, which is a solid. It would not surprise me if his field program is orientated over the last couple weeks just to early voting. You can pivot your field program. So field programs go through various different iterations, right? So when you're knocking on doors, the first third, honestly, the first full pass. So let's say there's 40,000 doors you want to knock on. Then my advice is to knock on 120,000 doors. You want to go through those 40 3 times. The first pass is a big giant ID clean pass. That's where we just make sure that, the house didn't burn down. And believe me, that's happened. It's well, the road is still there. Also, something's personally happening. You've knocked 1 million doors, which I have easily knocked on 1 million doors in my lifetime with candidates and on my own, all that stuff. Every single possible thing is that, well, I've had guns pulled on me. I've been shot at. I have had dogs sicked on me. I've had dogs break through windows. Oh yeah. Everything you can imagine. I'm alive because of the grace of God. Let's just put it that way. So I've seen it. I hate to say I've seen it all, because every once in a while you're just like, wow, I ain't seen that before. So, I mean, it happens, but it's very, very rare. So anyway, you go through iterations. That first third, that first 40,000 doors in your 120,000 door field program, that first one is just to clean, to make sure that the 40 you're targeting makes sense. There's always more doors, so you can add more doors to get the, so if, let's say you identify 5,000 doors that are just no bueno. Well, your no bueno list, you can have those removed. And there you can basically, you're looking at, you have a universe that you've targeted as far as the voters go, right? There's the ones that are 100% likely to vote. That'll be people who vote in this election. This is these special elections on weird days, on weird months, and these guys vote. These are the 100% voters. Um, then there's the 90% voters, and a lot of them are going to vote in this election. Then there's the 80% voters, and those guys vote on all primaries and general elections, but maybe they don't do all the specials. Then you get to 70. So they'll vote in some primaries, but all generals. Then you get to 60% likely to vote. Those guys generally will vote in the primary on a presidential cycle, and they'll vote on election day most of the time. But they'll only vote in the primaries on presidential cycles normally. Then you get your 50s, and they might vote for president. There's a solid, they've done it before, they'll do it again. 50-50, And then you start getting below that. And what's interesting, so your targeted universe always has like that group, right? The 70 and above, which is probably what they did here. It wouldn't surprise me if they were as high as 85 and above, right? Because you want to go after the people who are going to vote. You don't want to waste time with people who aren't going to vote because you don't have any time. Campaigns are all about time and money. You can always find more money, and sometimes you can't, but you can never make more time. Time is linear. Einstein was very clear about time travel. It's also no bueno. So you can't make more time. Money can make your time more efficient. That's what money does for campaigns. It can solve problems. That's why when you see a well-funded campaign, they look like they're doing things a lot better. They're probably not. But whereas one campaign actually has to figure out a problem and solve it without spending money, that's very hard to do. Rich campaigns can just throw money at it. Problem solved. Oh, we misprinted door hangers? Money. Problem solved. We printed new door hangers. Boom. Done. Campaigns that don't have a lot of money can't afford to reprint door hangers, but maybe they can reprint it. They can print a very, very expensive white sticker that they can put on the door hanger to correct whatever the mistake is. I'm speaking from personal experience. But mistakes were made. Anyway, but in order to be legal, so we have certain laws that the door hanger has to say certain things, and if it does not say exactly those things, you can get a lot of trouble. So there's no way I'm putting my field in out there with material that's going to get the campaign prosecuted. So yeah, you put a sticker on it, or you can just reprint it, which is so much easier and so much better, because until you've put stickers on 20,000 door hangers, you really don't know how much fun life can be. So you're going after that. They went after that high propensity voter is what we call that group. So then you come down and you've got the low propensity voter. See, that's what we did in Green Bay. So we didn't have necessarily very much time, but we knew the voter turnout in Green Bay is very predictable. And what's interesting about Wisconsin is they have same day voter registration, which completely changes how field programs work. Completely. They think about it this way. In Texas, you have to be registered to vote. Like, for example, to vote in the March 3rd primary, I think you have to be registered to vote by February 1st or something like that. So in order to vote in the primary, you got to get registered in the next 48 hours or something. Don't take my word for that. Go to your elections office, go to the website, and look for yourself. It'll be very bold print right at the top. Don't be using me like that. I don't have it in front of me. So, but yes, it's going to be in the next few days. You better have your registration figured out if you want to participate in the primary on March 3rd. But in Wisconsin, it's not like that. In Wisconsin, you can walk in on every early voting day except the last one, and on election day, fill out paperwork, register to vote. Which means for a field program, like after the first 30 days, when you're within 30 days of the election, you know exactly, you have a finite voter universe that will not grow. It will only shrink. And you know exactly what your universe looks like. In Wisconsin, it's finite to the point of the population of the environment in which you're operating. So it is technically finite, but really infinite. You know, 100% of the people aren't going to vote, right? So you have, it's any Joe Schmo walking down the street could potentially be a voter for your candidate. So how do you run that? It's weird, right? So here in Texas, we don't have to worry about that. So they probably targeted high propensity voters, right? In Wisconsin, we targeted low propensity voters because we want to get bottom up, which will increase the total voter turnout overall. And it worked, Sean. Not a lot of people do that. Not a lot of people take the chance or run the math on going after those voters because they're low propensity. And you know why they're low propensity voters? Because no one's ever bothered to ask them to vote. So, and also political consultants don't like expanding the voter universe. Candidates don't like expanding the voter universe. The candidates that are kind of under the gun, that don't have necessarily the votes to win, they always want to expand the universe. If you're an incumbent, you never do. Because, in fact, I got in worlds of trouble working in Obama's campaign with elected officials in certain parts of Dallas because we were knocking on doors, getting people to vote in a primary. And these candidates knew exactly who votes in what primary. And when you have the universe so zeroed in on, expanding that universe just makes campaigns more expensive, creates bigger headaches for the incumbents. But my job was to get a president elected, not the local, I mean, the locals were already getting elected. They just didn't like the fact that we expanded the voter universe of propensity to vote. So when you're doing your field program, you can always add. So you lose 5,000 doors due to the burning down or moved. A lot of it's just moved. Voters aren't there anymore. They've moved to somewhere else. And there are programs to track that, but generally in a field program, we move on. I'll just go in and drop the propensity number a little bit till I've got a universe that fills into the 40,000 universe for the next pass. And then we go after those. So now we're going back for a second pass for 95% of those houses, right? And we're not going to talk to the people we've already spoken to, right? That's the other group that you're going to have to add some more houses and drop that propensity number down so you can add more houses. We're not going to knock on the doors we've already spoken to. Not yet. We're going to skip those houses and continue knocking on their neighbors that we haven't spoken to yet for that second pass. And then we're going to get a 12% response rate, talk to another, 5,000 voters, households, right? And then we have a third pass. This pass is interesting. This pass is the GOTV pass, get out the vote. This third pass usually happens during early voting, or definitely starts and goes into early voting. And that third pass is so incredibly important because you got to talk to everyone you already spoke to, and you got to go after all those other doors that you still haven't spoken to anyone. And you got to remind everyone to vote. So that third pass we call GOTV pass, the GOTV pass, get out the vote. And I'm betting that that Christian did that with his field program because it's the only thing that would account for such a huge difference in their early voting numbers. It's the only thing that's really about it. Christian also had some great endorsements. Jasmine Crockett endorsed him. So, people who say endorsements don't help, in races that have very low turnout, like these special elections, they super help. Plus, Jasmine Crockett is very, very name recognition for miles. She's really a dynamo in our party, and I'm absolutely huge fanboy for Jasmine Crockett. And yeah, I mean, I liked Amanda, but whatever. Doesn't. Yeah, we picked. pick candidates, whatever. So I'm not. I don't. I've been doing this so long. I lose no sleep in a primary where perfectly good Democrats are running. I like whoever can go into Washington and vote with AOC. That's where I'm at. So yeah, that's kind of my where I'm at. Let's see. Let's see if they've updated. Before, hey, come on. Let's see here. Oh, they must be updating because I got the error. No, no update. Lame. No update since 7 o'clock. Well, that happens, I guess. So the next update's probably going to be in about 20 or 30 minutes. So are there any questions? There's 18 people watching this, 32 likes. Really appreciate it. Don't have a lot. I'm always amazed when, I gave 2-hour notice on this live feed. I'm always amazed when people come on and watch my live shows because I don't do a lot of red meat with Trump, that stuff, because you can go to Midas a million other places and get that. I don't really watch Midas Touch that much. I just don't do the yelling part of it too well. I work in data, and if I have a question, I just go in and do the research myself. But it's because that's my job. But there's a lot of really good people out there doing a lot of really good programming, and I just don't do a lot of that red meat stuff because it feels like that's all that's out there. And and I know they got like 1 million more viewers than me and all that jazz, but that's okay. I'm fine with that. If I wanted 1 million viewers, I would show you all of my incredible gaming streaming that I could do because I'm a gamer, because I'm a Gen X, and I had an Atari 2600 when I was 4. So I've had a game system my whole life. So just for you guys, for those of you curious about who I rock some serious Civilization. I like Minecraft. I play Minecraft with my kids quite a bit. Oh no, I think this is a definitely win. Dos Mas Q5Z. Thank you for watching. Yes, this is a win-win for us. I'll be honest. The only people who lose this election are the Republicans, because now we've tightened the margin in Congress one more. There's a reason 332 days later we're filling this seat. It has everything to do with Greg Abbott being Trump's butt boy. I hate to use the language, but facts are facts. And yeah, Abbott's absolutely will do whatever Trump wants him to do. Because you have to understand something, everybody. When you're watching these elections, you got to watch them through what I call the 18-month prism. What if Greg Abbott's running for office? Anyone give any thought to that? What do anyone think? Be the worst president. Well, he wouldn't be the worst. We currently have the worst. He'd be the second worst president we've had this decade. No, but I think he's running. I think Greg Abbott's absolutely running for president. Hence the reason he's like, I'll volunteer my National Guard. Yes, we'll go after all of our cities that are hiding, undocumented workers. I'm not calling them the other legal thing. There's no such thing as an illegal human being on this planet. That's not a thing. You can be undocumented. You could lack paperwork. That's fine because those are all just constructs of that were made up 200 years ago. For real, it's paperwork. So yeah. Oh, very good. Well, happy you agree. But yeah, no, this is a win-win for us. But the hey, Josie Dog says howdy, y'all. Howdy. The party the Democratic Party, I believe this shrinks the margin to about 4 votes in Congress. And that's solid. You understand there's a contingent of Republicans who are really, this has been a change. Some of you guys might have not noticed it. You have to really pay attention. But for a long time, and if you look at that big beautiful bill, there's a perfect example. They're just not as consistent as they used to be. But for a long time, Republicans, they've sat and created most of the debt this country has. 10 out of the 11 recessions were under a Republican administration. Republicans are terrible for business, terrible at government, and terrible at governing. They're really bad at all of it. Yet they keep getting reelected because they make billionaires, which is great if you're a billionaire. And there's a group of Republicans who are actually deficit hawks. Now they get bribed into, the big beautiful bill added $5 trillion to our deficit over the next 10 years. Full. And the Gulf War was $7 trillion. I'm not Gulf War. The Iraq-Afghanistan war was $7 trillion. Do you want to know what you can do with $7 trillion? Hey, good evening, Linda. You could put 3 moon stations on the moon for $7 trillion. But we decided to kill 500,000 people in the Middle East and gut any hope of my grandchildren not paying back this incredibly huge deficit. Because I'd much rather have moon bases. I'll be honest. I'd like to put a really big telescope on the other side, on the dark side of the moon. That would be awesome. But that's not what we spent our money on. So yeah. From a lot of nonprofit orgs. Okay, well, there's a lot of, I'm not sure what the question is. Form a lot of, sorry. Okay, a little dyslexic. Form a lot of nonprofit organizations. I like nonprofit organizations. They're the super PACs, believe it or not. Why my guy Beto can't break through. Oh, okay. Yeah, I know. Listen, I've known Beto since 2012. When he first ran for Congress. If they had asked me what should have been done for Beto's campaign, I can assure you nobody did. And I have videos on this Beto's race. Whatever happened. But I know what he didn't do. So in order for a Democrat to win this, like Beto, for example, or Desmond, or or Tillerico, whoever's going to win the primary in about a month. The reality is, yeah, they typecasted Beto, but you know what they typecasted him as? Somebody cool. I liked Beto. I liked their version of Beto. They couldn't put him in a box. They tried really hard. He got within 300,000 votes of Ted Cruz. That's the closest anybody's ever come. So whatever they typecasted him as, it worked in our favor. What didn't work in our favor, I love Beto. What didn't work in our favor was, so he raised $137 million, right, for his race. That's how much he raised. If he'd taken 16 million and knocked on 4 million doors in 19 very specific counties with very specific targeting, he would have had more than enough conversations to close that gap. Most of the candidates that run statewide as Democrats don't have a lot of money. He had the most of any candidate ever, 137 million. It's a lot of money. And what he needed was paid, well trained, data focused, 19 county, $4 million field program. If that, I think you would have won. But instead, they like to buy commercials that people mute. And or they're not watching TV with commercials, so can't reach any of those guys, or they, when the commercial comes on and you're watching Maddow, you go back to the kitchen or you go use the restroom, because that's what I do, or I mute it. Yeah, everyone hates commercials, everyone ignores them. They spend campaigns. Go look up some campaign finance reports. Go look at expenditures. Millions of dollars on that stuff. And there's a lot of guys in the industry and my industry that I work in make a lot of money. Now, there's certain kinds that I do think is worth it, but those are real geo marked, like using streaming services. Like, I want to talk to African American males between 20 and 35 that watch the NFL app, and I want to target them in these zip codes. Now, with streaming services, you can do that kind of micro targeted media, and I think that stuff's of value. Well, Colin Allred, another gentleman, he actually interviewed me. Oh man, what year was that? 2010 maybe? And he was looking for Obama people who'd worked in the field. You keep in mind, I was a data director for Obama Dallas. We knocked on 385,000 doors in Dallas County, and nobody ever done that much with volunteers and hard copy. There was no minivan in 2007, 2008. It was all hard copy, follow up, phone banking, into the field to make sure those canvassers were actually hitting the doors. They said they were. I had 6,000 volunteers. So needless to say, there's very few of us even left that did that in Dallas. I don't really know anyone that's currently living in Dallas that was part of the executive team that isn't retired. I'm the last one. I kept up with most of them. Unfortunately, a lot of them have passed away. Most of the people I worked with for the first 20 years of my career were boomers. So they're getting older now, and attrition. So yeah, they're moved on. And so that's it. That leaves me. So he interviewed me, and this is a fun fact, and not something I talk about often, but the state party in 0708 was very Hillary. And anyone who worked in Obama's campaign was, minus one or two exceptions, was persona non grata with the party. Keep in mind, we just run the largest, we've gotten more state houses elected. And go back and look at how many state house seats got picked up in 08 versus 2010. That was because the party, County Party Dallas, I'll speak directly to, and none of them are even around anymore, absolutely put the black ball on all of us. So all of us left. I left. Everyone left, because if your party is telling your clients not to pay you, it's really hard to make money. And you got to make money in order to eat food and pay rent. So everyone just got the hell out. Not to mention, I'll be honest, most of the best consultants I run into outside Texas are from Texas or did a lot of work in Texas, but they left. There's just and there's tons of money in Texas, right? Here's an interesting fact. Outside California, Texas gives more money to Democrats outside of its state than any other state in the country, not counting California. So when we talk about, oh, our candidates don't have enough money or what have you, oh, there's plenty of Democratic money. More people voted for Biden in Texas than voted for Biden in New York. You're going to tell me there aren't Democrats in this state? Get out of here. The only people who want you to believe that are Republicans. And they do this gerrymandering to say, see, there's no Democrats here. No, you chopped us up into little pieces. I could do the math on that. It's not a problem. So that happened. And then a lot of people just left. And then you get what you get. And now here we are, over a decade later, and we're looking around and wondering, where's the key staff? Who's got the experience to run campaigns? And, if you can find a guy with 3 years experience, which means maybe they have one presidential cycle, I don't count you as anyone with any real experience till you have at least 3 presidential excitement. I mean, you know what I mean? You got to go through your first one, 4 years, go through a second one, and then, 12 years. Yeah, like I said, 10 years is a good, you've gone through enough because every cycle is 2 years. You've got enough. And it's just hard to find staff like that in Texas specifically. Yes. We are running the most Democrats, I think, in the history of Texas right now. I'll have to check with the state chair, who I love. I've actually done shows on him. He's great. We've got literally everyone running in every. So those of you who've watched my channel, I've never understood text blogs. Oh, no problem. So I don't know if you guys know, but I actually did a candidate interview with Eli Worthy. He's 18. He's running for county. He's running for Justice JP4 in Precinct 4 in Collin County, which is, by the way, turning into a blue county. Whether Republicans want to deal with that or not, I don't know. It's really turning into a blue county. His specific part, so basically you get 4 precincts per county. His 4th precinct is the blue part. It's the I-75 corridor. It's McKinney, Allen, Plano, all that jazz. So he's got a really, really good chance of, he's already the nominee, right? Didn't even have a primary opponent. Absolutely amazing that the party did that for him. And the county party has to, because people want to run for stuff. We'll just run for that. Well, how about you? What the county chair did was he wasn't going to let anyone run against anyone until all the seats were full. That we have full slate, and then we can have contested primaries. But until we have a full slate, slow your roll. That's what he did. And Eli Worthy ended up coming out without a primary opponent, which is brilliant for him because he's a college student, 18. He's working on his master's. I'm not master's. He's working on his bachelor's in business, right? And he's in a program that goes through to the master's program. Anyway, a really smart kid, Eagle Scout, all that jazz. I interviewed him. You can go check out that show. Absolutely worth a watch. Here real quick, I'm going to check see if we got any update. No update. Okay, so Eli's running for that seat. He is the youngest candidate in Texas running for elected office as a Democrat in Texas. I'd say he's got to be probably the youngest candidate in the country. There can't be many of them, right? A very elite group. Well, he impressed the hell out of a very good friend of mine, and who was a precinct chair, very active in the party, but then kind of leadership has a lot to do with a good county party, and it was lacking. So he kind of got bored with it and moved on, which happens. Um, so he ended up doing that, but then he got back into it, and he's watching this kid speak, and he's like, this kid's articulate. He knows the issues. He knows what he's doing. He knows why he's doing it, which is more than you can say for most candidates running. So he calls me up. He's like, hey, man, this kid needs 500 signatures. And the way you get on the ballot in Texas is you got to go get 500 signatures. It varies by, or you can pay money. I think it's BS. I think you should have to get your signatures. That's my personal opinion. But you can go get signatures, or you can pay the $2,000 to get on the ballot. Well, he's a college kid. I got $2,000. No. So he also doesn't. So also then you would say, okay, so now I need to go talk to registered voters. How do I do that? Well, there's a program that all Democrats use across the entire country. It's a Voter Action Network. It's VAN. And any of you have ever volunteered for a campaign, minivan, that feeds off the CRM, that the database management system that allows you to do that. Well, to get into VAN as a candidate costs a couple $1,000. And he didn't have $2,000 to get on the ballot. He definitely got $2,000 to get VAN. So he called me. My friend said, help him. I'm like, okay. So he calls me up. He's like, what are my options? I'm like, how much to buy the voter reg for Collin County? Because you can buy voter regs, by the way. That's the other thing. There's all this hoopla about, oh, the Nome wants the voter reg for Minneapolis, whatever. Guys, I can get the voter reg for Minneapolis. Yeah, they sell it. It's not. That's just a scare tactic. There's 5 different companies I could call right now that would give me the voter reg to Minneapolis. Not give, I'd have to buy it. But, so anyway, he bought the voter reg for Collin County. Now, what's great about these voter regs is they're designed to make it difficult for you to access, right? And it's not like they're encrypted or any of that stuff. No, they're just ancient. They're like, unless you've got this much gray hair, you probably have never had to deal with a DBF file. It's a database. It's a database file in the most rudimentary terms. And the only way to deal with that is to pull it into one old piece of Microsoft software and then take it. And you can maybe probably on the 4th try figure out the right size that you can drop it into Excel. And the only people who know how to do that are people who had to build out hard copied articulated field programs back in, the before times, the before this time. Well, I happen to fall in that category. I built out the largest analog field program in the history of Dallas County. So I built that for him. I was like, hey, I'm just going to build up the 5 precincts around you. Knock on all these doors. You're going to get your 500 signatures. He got his 500 signatures in 11 days. Got on the ballot. Poof. And so that's how the youngest candidate in Texas got on the ballot. I used Access, which is one of the, if you have Microsoft Office, it's one of the pieces of software you never use. You can use it for pivot tables and stuff. I use it sometimes. I use it to basically pull in these huge freaking DBF files, turn it into a CSV file, and then drop it into Excel and turn it into an Excel file. It takes my old computer here quite a minute to do that, especially when you're talking about, I've got to parse it down to just precinct 4, and then I had to parse it down to just those precincts. And you just got to cut it down till you get and then not lose any voters, and you get down to the universe you want, and then you can go from there. So yeah, that's how he got on the ballot. It's not a very exciting story, but it's an important story because that database cost him $27. And then I did it for free because he's my special project. He asked me one day how much would I have charged him if he was like a normal client. Thousands of dollars to do that. It's so painful and terrible. And I would rather audit field programs than do that work. Um, and We call it a pain in the ass tax. Like, how many zeros do you want to add to this so people will stop asking you to do that work? That's how much fun it is. It's the root canal of campaign database management. It super sucks. Anyway, but for him, whatever. I hadn't done it in a minute, so I forgot. So because when you haven't done it because of CRMs and everything, you forget how terrible it is. And then so that when you're doing it, you're like, oh, it's fun because I remember how absolutely horrible this was and we had to do it. And we would spend, oh God, I don't even know, hundreds of hours. There's a few photos I wish I'd taken in the Obama campaign. So until 2024, the most doors I've ever coordinated in one day was 35,000. That was the Saturday before the March 4th primary in 2008. That's how many doors we knocked on that Saturday. I'll bet money that's still the most doors ever knocked on in one day in Dallas County. Definitely with analog. Like, so with digital, then my biggest number is 50,000 in one day. Although Florida, I might have beaten that. Now, Florida, we were doing 35,000 a day. So yeah, I didn't do that in Florida. But on election day in Milwaukee, we fielded 800 canvassers in 45 minutes, 113 vans. I've got photos. You can't make that shit. It's nuts. It doesn't, you're just like 113 vans. What's that look like? Well, it looks like a big giant basket of keys first. And with everyone, and they all have like an ID sticker on it. And you got to keep that stuff organized. And every team is think of that van as a team. Very, very, very organized. And the amount of work it takes to do that kind of logistics and the amount of money that costs. And that's because the model of that program was operating on the same model that most campaigns operate on nowadays. It's called what I call the ramp up model. And I should do a show on this. There's really two different disciplines in canvassing. There's the ramp up model where you start with a small group and you ramp up and then you just get this huge number of canvassers at the end and just blow it out. Right? Kind of like, think of like a wave and it just goes boom. I don't like that. That peak, that swell when that wave is hitting, most of those canvassers are not well trained, in my opinion. Well, not in my opinion, facts. I mean, my opinion is based on facts. And I mean, there's training. We do training. But I'll be honest, unless the canvasser's knocked on 200-300 doors, this is paid canvassing, these are people we're paying to knock. And I haven't seen the data on those 300 doors, and I can't get the feel for what that canvasser's doing, right or wrong, what their disposition is, and what people view them, because a lot of people will decide whether or not you're trustworthy within a second of looking at you. I don't get that data just from a person who's canvassed for one day. I need 300 doors. I need a week and a half of canvassing, 2 weeks of canvassing from a canvasser to really know, and to think that they've run into enough of a variant of different kind of person on each porch that they've dealt with just about every issue. That's what I call a well-trained canvasser. Well, you can't get that on a big election day canvas. Oh yeah, no. Fed employees, they have rules, and those rules are very, very important. Okay, so also thank you for doing the work you're doing with the federal government, because Lord knows it has to be an incredibly hostile environment these days. But my idea, so the one program will say, okay, to go into a community about a city about 500,000 to 1 million, you need 800 canvassers on election day. I think you need about 40 shifts a day for about 2 months, every day though, of well-trained, well-paid canvassers. You will hit the same number of doors as that ramp-up scenario. The doors will be way, way better. The data you collect will be infinitely better. And your ROI will be hella better. I mean, so one of the things that we do is we drill down. Here, I'm just going to check. It's the live feed telling us any updates. Man, 8:30 and no updates yet. Wow. I wonder what they're doing. Oh man. So So I have no idea what any of that means. NOIG, okay. AUSA, I have no idea what that means. I don't. But Josie, I'm sure it's worth laughing at. But I truly don't know. I need that. I don't work. I've never worked for the federal government. I've only ever done campaign work. I've staffed campaigns. Staffed elected officials. So maybe I have, kind of a weird way, but that's why, you get the scenario we got with Biden, where the people around him were keeping him in that seat because they really enjoy meaningful employment and positions of power. But I've tended never to want to. So when you win with a candidate, a lot of times they'll ask, "Hey, would you like to join the staff and staff the candidate and be part of the, the office?" And I usually say no. Oh God, no, don't do that. That sounds horrible. Josie, good call. Oh no. Oh my God, U.S. Attorney. Ooh. Anyway, so I've been asked to become staff before, and yes, the pay is regular, but the work is not what I do. It's kind of like when when you watch The Godfather, it's like you have staff that are like peacetime counselors, and you have wartime counselors. I'm a wartime counselor. I'm the trenches. I'm the campaign. That's the work I do. Peacetime, I get really, really bored. So I go look for battles. That's not what you want in your office. I promise. I'm a policy analyst in nature, but I'm like a militant policy analyst. So I don't I play really well with others though. I have a great time. Never had a staff that didn't enjoy working with me, but I just don't. I like being at the tip of the spear. I like going out there and finding the voters and not necessarily changing minds, but maybe informing minds so that they change all on their own, which I think is probably the only real way to do it. I'm kind of waiting for an update. I don't want to end this live stream with no climactic update, but we've been sitting at 13,621 votes for an hour and a half. I'll tell you, people, I don't know what's going on over there in Harris County, but they're taking their sweet time. And if they don't update, it's fine. This has been fun. I don't do a lot of live shows, and I'm experimenting. So if you and 46 people like this, really appreciate it. Actually, was really blew my mind with these live programs. The amount of people who watched them later on, I was like, oh shit. Okay, excuse my French. That's interesting. Okay, cool. Other people would sit there and watch me just talk for an hour, especially when they can't really see what else is going on, or especially if I do something that's live like today. We're talking about an election, literally that they're counting the ballots right now. It's kind of interesting. But I don't even do my interviews live. Not that I edit them in any way, because I do not. I do have video production background, but because I have that background, I don't want to edit. That's why you always see my stuff. It's always one take. If I screw up, I'll just start over and I'll retake it. It's happened plenty. I've got over 300 shows. Not all of them went off on the first take. Um, some of them I'll just go in and I'll be like, I don't like how that's going, and I'll rework the whole thing and then do it again. But yeah, so I like working in campaigns. That's what I like to do. And getting back to what we're talking about, Beto, I love Beto. I think he should have won. I think he would have been a much better, and needless to say, much better senator than Ted Cruz. But why he lost was he spent a lot of time and energy going to every county in Texas. There's like 308, I think. Oh, somebody's going to correct me. That's fine. I know there's a ton. There are 19 that matter. Not to say that people in those other counties don't, but there are 19 counties that you have to build a real field programming campaign in for a Democrat to win Texas. Most candidates go after 7 or 8 counties, and that'll get you about 300,000 votes short of winning every time, if you do everything right in those 8 counties, which I believe Beto did. His outreach was strong. Name ID was strong. Image was strong. But was he in Williamson County, Bell County, all the counties between San Antonio and Austin? It's not even just the one. So when you're running statewide, it's not really even about winnable counties. I don't care about winning counties. I care about votes, right? So a vote out in the suburbs of Lubbock or a vote in downtown Dallas is still one vote if you're running statewide. What I care about is density, because as a political operative dictator and field program advocate, the distance between door number 1 and door number 2 are your greatest pieces of logistical data as far as how are you going to do that. So if you're able, yes, density, because you need to be able to talk to enough people in a given hour, enough times, with enough canvassers to move the vote. Yep, area, Dallas. Youngster, I enjoyed it and appreciate you. Oh, great. Yeah, I'm actually from Oak Lawn. I don't know if you know, that's Cedar Springs, Oak Lawn. I grew up in the neighborhood. That's what they call it. So my daycare was the daycare that they just painted all those rainbow steps on, the Methodist church there, Oak Lawn Methodist Church. Yeah, that's where my daycare was. I went to Sam Houston Elementary. Yeah, I'm from, I used to ride my 10-speed in what is now Uptown, which was back then Sketchy Town. Oh, Lance Goodman. All right. Cool. Don't know much about Lance, but believe me, I for my shows, so just to White Rock Lake. Oh, I love that. I love White Rock Lake area. I'm actually up in Lake Highlands right now. Yeah, no, I've got lots of pictures of me in White Rock Lake, actually. But so I actually did a lot of municipal elections in Dallas in the aughts, leading into Obama, and then a little bit after that. So I worked with Angela Hunt, who was a city councilwoman for about 8 years, right in the White Rock area. That district's changed a bunch since then. That was back in the day. 05 is when she ran the first time. I worked with her field, and I have an events background. I can do events during campaigns too. If you can't do an event within 5 phone calls, you're not an event person. I think you got to get that down to 5 vendors in order to do it right, and 5 vendors that respond and do it right. So I worked on that, and I worked in her runoff because, and at that point, what's interesting, Angela Hunt's race in 05 was the most expensive city council race in the history of Dallas at that time. It has now been dwarfed many times over. Like there have been municipal races city council races in Dallas that have spent multiple millions of dollars. We thought we were blowing it up at like 700,000, multiple millions of dollars in these races now. Incredible. They were not like that when I worked them. In fact, back then we didn't have minivan. This was, of course, we I come from the land of field programs on 3x5 cards in those ring books, and each ring book was usually a precinct, and you could write on the 3x5 card. And what we did is we printed all the data that we knew about, like name, address, who was in that house, age, if we could fit it on the 3x5, and then the notes were on the back. And then we had people going through those cards, and anyone who you talked to, you would take and put a paper clip on that 3x5 card, and that was how you registered a contact. So then you would take that, drop that book off at the headquarters, and then we would go through and put the data in a database management system. That's OG. And you do that long enough, you will go insane. I'm pretty sure. But I wouldn't know, because if I was crazy, I wouldn't ask myself. But yeah, no, I love White Rock area. But anyway, so I've actually, there's very, very few neighborhoods in Dallas I have not run canvassing in, just given the breadth of work plus Obama's campaign. I've got a show on it. You can go look at that. There's a map that's got all the precincts of Dallas County. We canvassed everything in yellow, and it's most of Dallas County. You'll find very few spots, very few state house seats that we not go into in some form or fashion. And those were only the precincts I could guarantee we went into. There were a lot of other that we went into because there's no, van was not as bad as van is today. It's much better than it was back then, because minivan changes a lot of stuff. It doesn't make it easy for you to audit field programs in minivan. And I don't know why, but it doesn't make it easy. So we have to go in and give you an idea. Like for the Supreme Court race up in Wisconsin, I was the data director for the whole state. So I had about 165 canvassers under me. Each one takes about 4 minutes to audit. 4 minutes times 165. So you can see that my days were very long, and it takes hours and hours and hours and hours to audit, to properly audit, to where how many doors they knocked on, how many contacts they made, what their doors per minute were, how many contacts they had per minute or per hour, depending on how you did the math. And once you had that, you could look at all the other the canvassers, and you look for outliers, people who don't match up with that. Oh, the other thing you can also tell is how many minutes on doors. And if you're doing a 6-hour shift, you expect 5 of those hours to be on doors. You have 1 hour of getting there or breaks or whatever. And then, so you expect 300 minutes on doors. So once I know, so I also calculate how many minutes they were on doors. So that's the level that we, yeah, that's, thank you. Josie Dog, interesting name. Oh yeah, no. Well, see, the thing is, in reality, Texas is purple. Keep in mind that the gerrymandering disenfranchises. We have way more registered voters who don't vote than do. I can assure you, if all those voters voted, there'd be no more Republican Party in this country. So that's the thing people forget. Texas is the edge of the spear. We're the tip of the sword. We're the hilt and the blade for the Republican Party. Without Texas, there is no Republican Party in this country. Well, they got Florida. Really? You can have Florida. I mean, it gets smited from the planet every year or so Go for it. Have Florida. And gerrymandering is completely undemocratic. So is Citizens United. So is all that stuff. It's just the worst. But people always ask, if you could get rid of one, if you had choice between gerrymandering and Citizens United, which would you take? And I always say gerrymandering. Because a little known fact, there is a rate of return for campaigning by money spent that plateaus out. And so the more you spend, the less ROI, return on investment, you get. So there just gets to a point where you just kind of plateau, and you can spend twice as much money, and you're going to go up that much. But like that first $500,000 you spent, just boom, all the low hanging fruit, all of the organizing, the front end stuff, the doors. You've done 3 passes on a canvassing program. That first $500,000 to $1 million you spent, killing it. Your ROI is great. $2.60 a door, blowing it out of the park. Well, there gets to a point where it's like squeezing an orange. You've squeezed it only so much. So the money is very important, but the gerrymandering is the game. It's like if you're playing Monopoly and they own 90% of the properties before you even roll the dice once. That's what gerrymandering is. I would rather it be equal and then they own the bank than have the opportunity to go after those properties. But the way it is set up, and now is going to be set up with this terrible gerrymandering they did, that is all gone. And I mean, and it's not just that. So gerrymandering does a couple things, right? Oh, they put in a bunch more red voters. I'll be honest, out there in rural Texas, there aren't that many red voters. What they've done is they've increased the cost of a race. So if your race was only in 2 counties and now it's in 6, well, you've definitely increased the cost of that race by double. Is it updated? Do we get an update? Let's see. Still no update. Boo. Yeah, it's still sitting there. So yeah, you don't get the ROI that you I mean, it sucks because you're not playing on an even battlefield. You've got all these other counties you've got to battle in, and they're red counties, but there are Democratic voters in there, right? And they've been beat down. Oh yeah, I know, Roberts. They've been chipping away at the Voting Rights Act for the last decade and a half. Citizens United was a huge blast on the Voting Rights Act, and I'll be honest, there's very little left of it. Now, yes, it will change the gerrymandering. Texas is going to pick up a couple more congressional seats, and they'll cut those in just the way they've cut in all the others. I have a show on gerrymandering. Definitely worth a watch. In fact, I found out my kid's junior high government teacher uses my gerrymandering video to teach gerrymandering because it's 6 minutes long. It goes right through it and it tells you everything you really kind of need to know and how the math works, And so yes, they can absolutely cut those districts in. They'll be red. It's rough. This is what's interesting though. Like we have like 1 or 2 African American districts, 1 or 2 Hispanic congressional districts, and then some that are kind of like a mixy mix. But Hispanics and African Americans make up more than 60% of the population of the state. And they get 10% of the districts are drawn for their communities. No, that's it's not only is gerrymandering undemocratic, apartheid is undemocratic. And that's what we're doing here. That's what's happening in Texas. They're treating all the people of color in this state as third class, not even second class, third class citizens. And they're chopping up their neighborhoods and they're cutting them up and they're disenfranchising voters. They're convincing these voters that, Obama deported more people than Trump. But yet, for some reason, Trump, the Republicans say that Obama was weak on immigration. Are you kidding me? No, what the Republicans don't want is anyone coming from an authoritarian country into this one, understanding exactly the nonsense the Republican Party is pulling, and becoming a citizen and voting those morons out of office. That's what they don't want. And those people just happen to have a lot of melanin in their skin. That's what they're doing. So yes, the next census count's going to be a little rough. Certain, like Texas is going to get some congressional districts. No, exactly. We had due process. Boy, totalitarians super hate due process. Boy, they'll do everything they can to go around that. I mean, that's why they lynchings. They want due process. That's how they roll. This is nothing that we're seeing here is new. This is exactly the same playbook these guys have been playing since day one, and it is the worst. But man, I tell you, hold on a second here, guys. Let's see. It's 8:55. Anything new? So I'm going to go for another 5 minutes. I'm going to see if they do anything at 9, but I do actually have to eat dinner because if I don't eat, I get a little, so the minorities are the majority in Texas. African Americans, Hispanics, and Asians, actually a huge Asian population in this state, enormous. And thanks, Josie. So they should, by all rights, I mean, they should have 50, 60% of the elected seats in this state should reflect their communities. And we're looking like 10, maybe 8%. That's the reality. They're off by like 35, 40%. And it's going to get worse. And that's the stuff I fight against. So, anytime you guys, buy me, do one of those, $5 in PayPal or become a member of my Substack, that's the kind of stuff you're funding. That's my goal, is to upend that cart and change how these elections go. And that's what we do. Oh, I'll tell my mom you say hi. My mom also does YouTube. She's actually one who inspired me to. She was tired of me complaining to her. So she's like, you need to go complain to the rest of the world instead. I'm like, okay, Mom. So that's literally, I was so pissed off about Project 2025. It's one of my first 15 shows on this channel are Project 2025. Yeah. So that's where that came from. And then I just took my channel on my travels, which is what I'll be doing this year. Going, when I go, anytime I go to a different state, Wisconsin, different parts of Texas, odds are I could end up in Austin. That would be kind of fun. I don't like to live in Austin, but I like to visit it. I have a lot of friends there. But Wisconsin's great. I love Wisconsin. So, but just trying to do that kind of work, and bring what we know, the experience and stuff to campaigns or groups and organizations. Like I work with a lot of unions, SEIU. Shout out to those guys. They do a lot of amazing work in this country. All of the unions do. So I was a fan of Austin until the margaritas hit $15. I was there when they were $6. I liked it better when they were $6. Oh, that's just me. And it's just, yeah. So what's weird about Austin is it's incredibly dangerous because just to drive around is nobody. The only person I ever met from Austin is my daughter who was born there. Everyone else is from somewhere else. So you have a bunch of people driving in terrible traffic that learn to drive in 1,000 other places, all driving together in 115-degree heat. What could possibly go wrong? And it used to be the music capital of the world, but then it got too expensive for the musicians, so they all left. I mean, my friend has a coffee shop. If you ever go to Austin, I'm going to give a shout out to Kick Butt Coffee. Um, and I know the owner. He's a really cool guy. He's a ninth degree black belt in kung fu. Don't get in a fight with him. He has Kick Butt Coffee, and that is the longest running open mic. I think it's Thursday nights in Austin. I love that coffee shop. Yeah, I agree. If you're going to pay the rents in Austin, Austin needs to be better. Like there's Seattle rents in Austin. It better look like Seattle. I need a sound. I need mountains. I need forests. There's none of that in Austin. The green belt's kind of cool, but it's pretty only because of the rest of it. You know, anywhere else, I'd just be a bunch of green trees. And they're also cedar trees, which people don't realize when they move to Austin, the cedar is so strong there. If you're not used to it, uh, your life will change. Believe me. All right, I'm giving this one more shot. It's 9 o'clock. Hello, nada. Did not update. So what I'm going to do tomorrow morning is I am going to do an update show on the turnout and everything else that happened. Well, I agree. 2 days is about long enough to be in Austin. That's facts. I have a lot of friends there, so I can handle it a little bit longer than that. But yeah, I get you. It's also, that's not, Lady Bird Lake is not a lake, it's a river. Just throwing that out there. But anyway, all right, guys, I'm going to let you guys go. You've been awesome. Like and subscribe. I don't have my little window, but you get it. And I'll put out a show tomorrow about the election. I'll get up early, grab all the data, and put something out for my Sunday show and talk about the special elections that are coming up, because we've got some special elections in New Jersey, North Carolina. So there's some really interesting stuff that's coming down the pipe. So, and they're all happening like this. It's elections every couple weeks. And then once March starts up, guys, it's we have an election every week in March. April gets crazy busy. May and June, 25 of the 50 states will have their primaries in basically a 6-week period in May and June. Crazy. So this is the beginning, guys. I'm looking forward to hanging out with you guys. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a long cycle. Welcome to the midterms. And I'll do more of these and take more questions or something. All right. Talk to you guys later. Have a good one. Bye.